What are the elements?
The four elements that I consider are air, fire, water, and earth.
When you utilize the four elements, how do they work with manifestation?
They work closely with the four directions. The element of air is associated with the direction of east, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean geographical east, but it could be. And the fire is associated with the south. The water is associated with the west. And the earth is associated with the north. And what happens through the process of manifestation of creation, there is the spoken word, there is the utterance that is air, or a word that is coming from the east as a spoken word that brings something into a form, into a start of a creation, a pattern of creation.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Ofer Niv with us on the show today. Ofer's a transformational healer who specializes in shamanic energy work that addresses physical and emotional issues. He combines ancient wisdom, mysticism, and shamanism to help people transform their lives. It's always fun to explore techniques and experiences with other healers. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go talk with Ofer. Ofer, welcome to the show. I'm so delighted you could join us today.
I'm happy to join you, Julie.
Thank you. How'd you go from being an IT guy to a healer?
It took a long time, and it took something harsh to happen. So I've been for many years an IT senior manager with a big bank. And at some point, I think I was not sleeping, hardly sleeping for almost a month. And I started to feel tingling in my fingers, in my toes. There was something not right. And there was a lot of analysis done on this. And in the end, it was diagnosed as MS, multiple sclerosis. And for me, it felt like a death sentence. It really depressed me. I remember a trip to Italy when I felt like every step I walk up this, this tower is the last time I'm going to see. And you can, when I'm looking back at it, it is a little melodramatic, but it was very real. I mean, it felt very, very scary. And I knew I needed to do something about it. And so I started to listening to different spiritual speakers. I joined a program called Flight School. It's not how to fly airplanes, but I learned how to feel that we're not just a body. We have a lot more to us than the body and then the conditions of the body. And it really helped me in the sense that I wanted more of that. And so the last time we met in this program, there was a shamanic healer that showed up, and she said she sees something, a part of me in front of me, and she asked if I wanted it to be back in my body because it belonged to me. It was like a soul fragment. And I said, yes, sure. I didn't know what it was, but yeah, sure. And after an hour work, that involved soul retrieval and soul release and all sorts of other things. I flew back home to Phoenix. I lived in Phoenix at the time, and it was just excitement running up and down my spine. So I never experienced anything like that. It was like how sometimes people describe awakening or maybe Kundalini awakening, but it was good. It was really good feeling. And I said, I need more of that, and I need to understand more. And maybe it's time to also start helping others. So as it sometimes happens with me, I had to take the teacher's class first before I could take the student's class, because that's the sequence that was available. And the teacher said, yeah, just come on over. And it was good for me because I had to give up all notions of knowing anything about this and just go in and learn. And I loved it. And eventually I started practicing shamanic energy healing. And eventually I opened my own practice, which I did today. And, everything is different. I retired in 2021 from my job, and my symptoms have been gone probably around 2017. I stopped taking medications in 2020 for MS. And my doctor told me last year, you no longer need MRIs. Doctors are not allowed to say you don't have MS because that's not a thing. But, if you have MS, you have MS forever. But I know that I'm healed. I just know it.
Did the doctor ask you what you did to heal?
The doctor is very nice, but never seemed to care about what it was that I'm doing, that I didn't need medications anymore, and that I did not need MRIs anymore. There was no curiosity there.
Why do you think that is?
I think that, well, this particular doctor, I think, is a very nice guy that is so busy that he can spend 10 minutes with a client instead of one more minute. That's helpful. And so I think a lot of pressure. I also think there's something probably deeper, and that is, it's not something that can leave you. I mean, that's what medicine, traditional medicine believe, that having MS as a condition never goes away. I know that I don't have MS. He knows that I don't need medication and I don't need MRIs. And I wonder, you just make me wonder if you ever stopped to think why that is. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why it is, Julie. What do you think?
Well, I think it's outside of their purview. I believe that they do the best that they know how to do based on what they're trained to do and based on what their professional societies tell them is the standard of care. And I agree with you. I think it's a time thing. And I do believe that they have their patients' best interests at heart. And I believe that they're doing what they can to help the patients, but their view is in a box. It's just based on their frame of reference. And I always say that everything's healable and that it's all part of the healing equation. The work that they do, the work that you do, the work that I do, the work that other medical providers, whether they be Eastern philosophies or shamanic or whatever, ancient Chinese medicine, that it's all part of the healing equation. And we're led to what we need to help us heal when we're on that journey. Back to when you were feeling energetic in your spine, can you describe that for us?
It was like something not electric, maybe magnetic, that was moving in the area, like between the upper part of the spine and maybe to the middle back, up and down. And you can sometimes feel, like goosebumps in the back, or yeah, something that feels like really good. Sometimes I feel it, in the center of the chest or in my stomach. It's like a good feeling that is, I don't, yeah, it's kind of hard to describe with words. I just know that it was moving, and it was moving up and down, and it did this for 2 weeks. Every time, every waking hour, I could pay attention to it and saying, that definitely doesn't feel anymore like MS, because in the old days, I would think, maybe that's something getting worse. Maybe it's a sign that something else is happening. No, it felt so good. It felt like an opening of some sort. And I think that's what it really was, is some kind of reconnecting. Some invisible wires have been reconnecting.
When I see MS in my mind's eye, I'm like a human MRI. They look like lesions to me, like sores almost. And I watch them get encapsulated and then removed. And then I watched the whole neurological system get an update. Basically, from an IT standpoint, getting a tune up, if you will. And it's really fascinating how that looks. And I can see the lesions in the spine and in the brain and watch the nerves get regenerated. I believe that's what you were feeling in your spine, was those nerves were being regenerated.
Okay.
I want to go back to the part of your soul was out in front of you, or soul retrieval. What did the shaman do as far as your healing on the last day of your workshop that was different from what you'd experienced before? And did you find that there were nuances to that you could feel while the healing was happening?
So at that time, I didn't know anything about shamanic healing. So part of what I'm describing is just because now I know what was done. And what was done was going into past lives. And I believe that this past life was very dark. So it involved soul capturing. You know, as they say, most souls go through all sorts of things because creation wants to experience itself in all ways. And that's what we try to do too. And so that lifetime was one where I was told I was a dark magician and I captured others' souls. And there were specifically five souls in front of me that have not, inside of me that have not yet been released. And so there was all sorts of negotiations, and I'm just kind of listening and I'm saying, and what I'm saying is a long, long, long corridor that is a passageway. I just saw it. I mean, I was with my eyes closed and I just saw it, how the souls were being released from me one by one, moving guided through this corridor back to where they belonged. And where they belonged, now that I know it's a whole soul belongs to itself. It belongs to a spirit. And so I know that they went somewhere where they can go on their journey again. There was nobody to go to. All that was done long, long time ago. And it didn't feel when all this was happening. It was strange, but it didn't feel good. I had to say yes to all this to happen, and so I did. And the release of it felt really good, like something that doesn't belong here, something that makes everything kind of heavier was moving away from my chest. That's what it felt like. I also had an opportunity to receive parts of my soul that were captured. So that was not my entire soul, but there were soul fragments that were captured by other people. And I got them back as part of the process. There was also help, and this was done by it was us like students in a room, and one of the students, her specialty was working with aliens that know how to heal, and specifically the Hathors. So I was shown a place. If I remember right, it was like, these little nice booths in a garden with vines and all kind of stuff. So we've met in that kind of a place. I got interesting way to get to that place. Like I remember road signs, go left, go right. Anyway, we've met there, and there was pretty cool healing done there because they have all their futuristic advanced medicine that they have been working on. And that was more on the body in general rather than on this piece of my soul. It was just on everything that has to do with physical health. They had the machines for it, and they brought it, or they didn't have to bring it. I don't know how they did it, but that was part of the session. And I'm sure there was a lot more. That's kind of the highlights that I remember.
It's interesting to me in that, do you believe that part of the souls that were captured inside your body before the shaman did the healing on you, were they parts of your past lives?
Yes,
Were
that
they were they a part of your spirit or soul, I guess is my question, or were they souls that belonged to other people that didn't really have any connection with you in your past lives?
they had connection to me in past lives in the sense that I was then the bad guy, if you will, that that learned dark magic and captured souls, and it was time to release the souls. I didn't really need to go since then deep into asking where they came from, but um, I did make sure by meeting people that I really trust, healers that I really trust, to ask if all of them got released, and I got a yes on that. So I knew that everything is done. And then, there was a period in after that that I asked myself, am I evil? Am I bad because I've done these things? And I remember specifically told, you have no evil bone in your body. I was I was glad to receive it. It felt resonating with me. I don't think, it doesn't mean I don't have bad thoughts from time to time. It just means that everything that was my identity in that lifetime is gone, and I'm certainly not interested in. So when I learned healing, there's always, I mean, in the Jewish Kabbalah, you have, for example, the tree of life, and you have the right column and you have the left column. And the right column is, choosing the light. The left column can be considered as choosing the dark, although it's way more complicated than that. And I know that the temptations is there. I think probably since we fell from the Garden of Eden, there are these temptations that are brought by the knowledge of the good and evil from the apple that was eaten from the tree. And I never hesitate about it. I always choose the right, and that's it.
When you were going through that healing, was plant medicine being used in that healing with the shaman with whom you were working?
This shamanic work is not using traditional shamanic things outside of just working inner work. Let's call it inner work. So there was no external, there was no herbs, there was no plants, there was no drumming, there was no ritual really. I would say there was no external ritual. What it was working working with your heart, with your imagination, and with I like to say the inner hands, the hands of light, but the inner ones.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking you're an IT guy, so you're a linear thinker, obviously, because you were in that industry for so long. And I know you grew up in Israel and you were in the army, as everybody that grows up in Israel has to serve. So you're coming from a really linear background and you're experiencing all of this healing. Was your mind thinking during the time when you were watching all of this in your head, was your mind thinking, "Oh my god, I'm losing my mind?" Or were you just so open and so eager to heal that you just went with the flow of things? Did you find any inner conflict between your engineering mind, let me put it that way, and your spiritual mind? Was that in conflict ever when you were going through it?
It was a very common experience for me to doubt everything that I hear. So, for example, when we talk about spiritual gifts, I mean, the different kind of gifts, CDs that you can have. I mean, I had so many doubts about this and about the ability to heal the body with something that is internal or connecting to divine energies. All this was completely foreign. I grew up in a secular family in a kibbutz. My father rebelled, in his Orthodox family, and went to the military at the age of 16. I had not an ounce of religiosity in my surroundings, and maybe who knows, maybe it was actually helpful in my quick transition into the spiritual, because I did not have to go through religious filters. And as you say, I served in the military and I've done a lot of things that are linear. I think my mind always knew that there is something else. One of the things that I got to know about myself at work for the bank was that things are way, way simpler than they seem. And when I don't go the simple way, I get in trouble. I get myself in trouble. I get others in trouble. It's like the way that I'm designed to be and the way that I was trained to be are two different ways. One is saying, go through very complicated procedures and do it linearly, as you say, and have everything has to go through the left brain and make sense. And um, and it became really obvious to me that if I know something, and if I know it as a simple thing, it is the truth for me, and it is good to follow it. And I got a lot of help for that through working with other people that, sort of instilled it in me that, it's okay to listen to your body. It's okay to listen to your intuition. And so it wasn't, it was a smooth ride, I think, but it wasn't an easy ride necessarily. I had to go through a lot of different beliefs that had to be changed.
Well, and I believe most of us are taught to analyze the daylights out of things, and we end up really overanalyzing things, to your point, when we're making them way more complicated than they need to be.
It's the Western
It's the
way.
Western way.
But it's
Exactly.
interesting that in my life, I had all these experiences that I never paid attention to.
Like what?
Uh, like an NDE,
You
I
did?
think, a near-death experience that I experienced when I was volunteering to the Israeli military. And I just put it aside and I never thought about it until after I was diagnosed with MS.
What happened?
So what happened was it was a fitness test and I was not very fit. But I wanted to go to this, unique unit in the military. And so they had these tests. And I think I was passing out because we were running. And I remember myself kind of like in a slow motion in a dream when you try to run and everything gets slow, falling down. And everybody around me saying, get up, get up, get up. And I'm getting up and then I'm falling down again. And then eventually I find myself on something that I can only describe as a deep like deep vertical tunnel or hole with a ladder, and I'm climbing up and down. Eventually, I came to call it some kind of a Jacob ladder, but I was climbing up and down, and I heard people talking about me, and it could have been the nurses because at that point I was already in some medical facility. Um, I heard crying. It was not a It was not a great experience, to be honest. It was a terrifying experience. The experience was whatever is going up and down, and it's never gonna end. And and so I didn't want to think about it for years. It was like a nightmare for me. And I made sense of it. It's a different story, but I made sense of it. But I know that when I woke up, I mean, it was like nobody told me you died. So medically, I don't believe I died, but I know that my mind, my soul went somewhere that it needed to experience, and I had to make sense of it when I was ready. And I was certainly not ready then. And I had other experiences when, as a child, going to sleep and or waking up in the middle of the night and finding myself levitating. I mean, there were these experiences that I don't know how else to say it, but pull aggressively out of my head and put it aside and never think about it again, kind of things. So,
Did you ever tell anybody?
no, never talked about it because it was like, they'll think I'm crazy.
Right. Yeah, interesting. So, did you make it to the elite unit that you wanted to join?
I made it to another elite unit.
Okay.
I also it's kind of interesting with everything that I'm doing now because I have three brothers in Israel, and they're very different. Their beliefs are, what I used to have, very patriarchal, very traditional in Israel, and one of them, I find it easier to explain to him what he's really interested in, what's going on and how it works and how, what I do to help others heal and stuff like that. And he is really high in the military, or was until recently. And he's the guy that is most open to all of it, which,
Well, it makes you wonder what he's seen that they don't talk about. And the thing about that, and then we'll switch off of this military rabbit hole we've found ourselves in. But the thing that I find interesting is that most military intelligence, as well as any kind of intelligence, is certainly the Mossad, and the Israeli military is right up there with the best in the world. And they all have psychics and remote viewers and people like that that are doing woo-woo stuff in the intelligence industry.
absolutely. I learned, by the way, remote viewing for 3 years, and I'm a certified teacher in remote viewing in something called controlled remote viewing. But that's sort of an aside because I like remote viewing in that it's kind of a proof, right? It proves to you that all this is real because it's actually kind of linear, the process, not how it happens, but the process is kind of linear, and you have to write everything down in order and all that. And then there is the psychic or the intuitive way, which honestly is faster, is way faster.
I teach it too, and I use it because 'cause I'm looking at people everywhere all over the world, and scanning inside their bodies, and so that's all a form of remote viewing and then regular
Yeah.
remote viewing too. But I find it fascinating how them and all the big companies, the Googles and the Microsoft and the Apple and those guys, they all have, departments of people that are intuitives and remote viewers, and I love the information that came out. I believe it was in the '70s it was released, but I think in the '60s during the Cold War, Stanford University in Palo Alto was working with a group of remote viewers very famously through the
Yeah.
Stanford Research Group.
Yeah. 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 So what caused me to really believe that I can view something, that I can remote view something? The way we got the education is we would get there was a picture of something, and I was just given random coordinates. I mean, they don't really mean physical geographical coordinates, but they're the intention of these picture is what it is. And I start to describe the picture, and I describe the lines, and I describe the ambience, and I describe the temperature, and I describe all kind of things, and then I draw it. And what I draw is two lines with kind of a circle. So there are two lines and a circle between the lines and some other details. And then it turns out, in the end, I'm shown the picture, and it was the particles accelerator at Stanford University. I had no idea. I saw the picture and I saw what I drew, and it was like you could put one on top of the other and it
Wow.
would match.
Yeah,
It was just like, okay, that works. That works. It is not nothing.
I know. Oh, so you can't make this stuff up. It's just
No.
really, right? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. All right, let's circle back. What's a shaman and what's shamanic healing?
So what it involves is what shamans do really well is moving between different times, different realms, to see what needs to change. So you can say go into other times, or sometimes even take yourself completely out of time and change patterns in time, so that if the past is different, the present and the future can be different. I also say that there are different kind of lineages that we work with. So we work with past lives of my own soul or the client's soul. We work with past generations of the client's ancestral lineage, and and it's interesting to see how information and energy and patterns flow through families, because some of it I'm sure is genetic, and some of it is we don't know how it does it, but these are what I call energetic patterns.
So a shaman is basically a healer.
It's a healer, and I can tell you a little more about how it evolved, because so the soul retrieval, the soul release, the going into past lives, the identifying of entities which are spirits or souls, however you want to see it, of dead people that we can accumulate, and they are attracted to us by the magnetics of our own frequencies. And so as shamans, we release entities, we release contracts, vows, curses. There are all these interferences that people don't know they're in them, and they're blocking them.
Do you work more with people who have physical ailments happening than emotional, or both? Or do you believe that one is connected to the other?
I believe that one is absolutely connected to
I
the
do
other.
too.
They're all layered, just different aspects of our being, and when and I like to work in all ways that I can help. And so it's all of them. I work with people that need physical help. I know that people with MS are drawn to me. People with cancer are drawn to me. I'd say usually chronic kind of illnesses. But I worked with somebody that had shoulder injury, from basketball playing, and I helped him. So I do this, and I used to have appointments that are like 60 minutes or 30 minutes. And I didn't call them that, but I was thinking of them for a long time as 911. You know, you need something is broken, something is not working. Just come over, and we'll do whatever needs to be fixed. And there are different ways that I work with the physical that that maybe I'll start with. There's so many ways that I don't even know how to describe it, but sometimes it's like I feel like there's just fingers that are adjusting whatever needs to be adjusted, for example. And um, and then there are the clients that come to me because they feel stuck, because they're looking for a purpose, because they lost their life purpose, and it keeps them fatigued and stuck. And so they'll come to me with the symptoms, and the symptom might be, I'm just feeling sick all the time and I have no energy. And I know that this feels very physical. And usually we find physical things going on. And we also find that there is something else going on that needs to be adjusted. And many times just as an example, it's I just want to be free. I just want to be me. I just want to be authentically me. And I know that for me, that all these years that I was probably a pretty good manager at the bank was not really what I wanted to do. And so it was bound to create physical issues because of the feeling of the burnout and the stuckness of where I was.
Yeah. I want to go to the Kabbalistic healing part of our conversation. As I mentioned, I studied it for 3 years and it's all integrated into the work that I do. I don't think, oh, well, I'm going to use this Kabbalistic healing and then I'm going to use this energetic healing on top of it. It's just all mushed together, which it sounds like yours are as well. And I think most of us that do this line of work, we take all of our different things that we've learned and we mix it up and then we have our own version of what we do. But the funniest thing about the Kabbalistic to me is with the healing part anyways, it is an oral tradition, and it was so powerful that it was only shared this is what I was taught, I'd love to hear your take on this, that it was only shared with I think it was rabbis, male rabbis over 40, and they had to be married, and at the time I was learning it, I was a female Catholic girl in my late 30s. Now I was married, but it was really interesting how secretive it was because of how powerful it was from a healing perspective. Furthermore, there are scholars, biblical scholars that believe that Jesus learned Kabbalistic healing and utilized a lot of its principles in several of the miracles that he performed when he was walking around. Do you have any thoughts on that? Were you told the same thing?
I started with self-learning, self-taught uh, through recordings, especially. I think I started to learn it more and more, maybe starting 15 years ago, maybe more, maybe 20. I can't remember. There is a guy, he might be a rabbi in Israel, that started to teach it for the many, because it used to be, as you say, very secretive, and people were not supposed to see it, and so it was verbal, and then it was written, but still it was very secretive, and it was approached just by the rabbis and by the scholars. And scholars were, reading the book of the Zohar, for example, which was one of the central books of the Kabbalah, and we're telling everybody that it was actually written, not that long ago by somebody that pretended that, it was written by many, thousands of years ago, but actually it was written more like 600 years ago. And so there's a lot of scholarly things that I feel trying to make that like less attractive or less capable, but it really goes all the way to the book of formation, and the tree of life is just one of the tools of Kabbalah.
Explain what the tree of life is for those who are unaware of the tree of life.
And by the way, I'm not a scholar and not an expert, and so do your own studying on it, but I'll do my best. The tree of life for me is a diagram that describes the process of creation. It starts from, there is something that follows it that is probably easier to explain, of four worlds. And the four worlds are just different levels of emanations that are starting from the oneness, where there is nothing except for awareness, and moving into some sort of a concept, an idea, then move into form, and finally moving into something that is more like what we have here in the physical life. Now that you can segment the tree of life like this. The tree of life, the biblical story tells that Adam and Eve were in the garden. They were allowed to eat from the tree of life, but they were not allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And as we know, the story is they did eat from the tree of the good of the knowledge of good and evil, and fell from the Garden of Eden. And I believe that this garden is still a template that is available to us. And in fact, I do biweekly free group journeys. I just took a group as a journey because I do like a journey every time we meet for 30 minutes. And we did visit, not the actual garden, because that's a little too much energy, but one of the reflections of the emanations of the garden that is good for the level that you are at. So you might visit different emanations, but it's like a place where all the balance is restored. It's a place that is perfect balance. Everything is there and everything is in balance. And one of the things there is the tree of life that Adam and Eve were allowed to eat from. And because we don't live forever, at least not in one body. And the tree of life has 10 traditional, what's called sephirot or spheres on it that represents different levels of emanations that starts from creation all the way into manifestation in the physical. And so the top three, for example, is the keter, the crown, and then wisdom and understanding. Then there is the one that is the unseen one, that is the bridge over the abyss between these three, which are very divine to the rest of them. For example, there is one that is called Malkuth, which is sort of around the heart area or between the heart and the solar plexus. And it is like the center. And it is, I think of it as Christ consciousness because it's very heart-based. And the tree is looked also at left and right. And so the right is mercy. The spheres on the right side of the tree are associated with mercy. The spheres on the left side of the tree are associated with more formality and severity. The tree, it parallels the body. You can actually back into the tree. You move, if you just imagine a tree in front of you, you're not moving with your face into the tree. You turn around and you back into the tree. And then you have different spheres of the tree mapped into parts of your body and help you understand better who you are, what happens to you. There are all sorts of ways to work through the tree spheres to learn more about who you are, what you are, where you're going. I just love to use it for self-healing, just to work with certain spheres. I like especially the central column, which is the balance. And I start from the top and I go all the way underneath the feet. And this is like running a column of energy through the center of the body that is pure light.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I always think of it as it's all about balance, and it's about the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the here's what I don't want, here's what I want to create. And it's about getting that balance restored in the energy. And I was taught too, and see if this makes sense to you, that the right side of the body is the masculine side, the left side of the body is the feminine side. And that there's
That is true. I mean, the parallels also to the left brain and the right brain that are crossing. Yes.
yeah, which is fascinating. Okay. So when somebody comes to you and they say, I have a chronic back issue. I've got degenerative disc disease. I'm in constant pain. I've had lots of injections that don't work and whatever else their symptoms are. Where do you go from there? What do you do with that client? How do you help them?
So the first question that I'll ask usually, because I like to feel it, is what do you feel? And they'll start to tell me a lot of stories and I'll say, no, but what is it that you feel emotionally? What is it that you feel? And we'll come up with, let's say I feel, because I feel fear. I feel fear. And I'll ask them to be in the fear. And now, okay, just feel the fear and tell me, what do you feel now? And many times, when you go through several layers of standing in a feeling and then going underneath it and seeing what other feeling comes up, it goes sort of to the unconscious feeling that you were not even aware of, which might be grief or despair or disconnection from, profound loneliness, these kind of things. But whatever it is that comes up, sometimes it'll be deep anger, we'll start following that. And I say it opens a door for me. It just shows me where to go. And so when I do the work, sometimes I'll just do, okay, I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna do something physical for you in the body because I want you to feel that something physical is happening, and let's address the symptoms. And then what I'll do is I'll start running light, just running light through the body. And to me, sometimes it means it's like with two fingers, touch the tailbone and starts to run light upward. And I'll see the light going like this, so it's a little bit like maybe the Kundalini, or maybe it works with the nervous system. And I'll feel, that's how I know how to describe it. I'll feel if the light gets stuck somewhere.
Are you doing this remotely, Ofer, or are you doing it, in person?
All of it is Zoom.
Okay. So remotely.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I worked with somebody individually was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I visited LA, a group of 40 people, and I sat in a room and I told them about what I do. And then I started doing demos, and I had no idea what it's going to feel like because I've never done it in front of an audience and even with individuals. But it felt very similar to what I do when I'm on Zoom. So I
Yeah.
don't feel
Could they
it's much
feel it
different.
as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they did. I mean, I ask, I kind of do a little bit, and I ask for feedback, and there's always, there's so much. I feel a lot of stuff. They don't know it exactly to describe what's going on, but I feel a lot of, and sometimes there'll be something. I mean, they'll come up, and it'll be some trauma that'll come up. Maybe there was no awareness of it, and then we'll work on this. Uh, but I just like, I don't even know where I'll run the energies. I mean, there are methods. I don't remember the name of the who came up with this, that is doing triangles of light. You know what I'm talking about? Like connect this, the third eye with, say, the stomach and the liver,
Mhm.
and you run light on the triangle on the sides, and then you fill it with light. Sometimes I do this if I feel like there is an area that needs attention. I'll create triangles of light. But most of the time, I just direct light to where it's needed. And I will work with my physical hands, but I'm really working with the inner light hands that is just sending light to whatever needed. And so that's mostly what I do. Sometimes I feel like there is a need to change on the cellular level, and I don't know why, but I feel like then I need to move my fingers like this, and so something is happening that is shifting. And usually it's associated with releasing something and bringing in something else. So uh I don't know. I'm not an expert on, and I'm probably never gonna be on, like anatomy, on where everything is. And so I work on areas and on concepts more than on very, very specific organs or areas. I just know enough, I guess, to go to the right area. I
Mhm.
know if it's in your head or if it's in your torso.
There
No,
you
I'm
go.
kidding. I know more than that. But most of the time, something will just come up for me. Like, I'll ask, so, what happens with your mom when you were 4, when you were sent out? And, there's usually going to be a story associated with this. So we have to go into childhood. We have to go sometimes into the pregnancy, because mom was traumatized during the pregnancy and you just drank it in. So we'll find out where to go. So usually a healing session, even if it's physical, even if it's for cancer, it is not just about me doing something physical, but um, going to multiple layers. And it's hard to describe because I will know it when I feel it or when I see
Right,
it.
right. Let's change directions for a minute here as we're winding down. What are the 4 elements, and do they play a role in manifestation?
I believe they do, and I think they're like they're like the pillars of creation. Just to give you an idea how I work with the element.
What are the elements for those that don't know?
Well, the four elements that I consider are air, fire, water, and earth. And I know there are systems of 10, 12 elements, and I sometimes like to work with them. But I find myself more and more, I worked for a long time with a system of 10 elements, and I find myself more and more drawn to just work with the four elements because I was asked to work with some things that you can feel with your fingers, that you can touch.
When you utilize the 4 elements, how do they work with manifestation?
They work closely with the four directions. And the element of air is associated with the direction of east, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean geographical east, but it could be. And the fire is associated with the south. The water is associated with the west. And the earth is associated with the north. And what happens through the process of manifestation of creation, there is the spoken word, there is the utterance that is air, or a word that is coming from the east or from above. And then, because we're in a world, it's coming to us from the east, but it's really started from creation, comes to us as the element of air, as a spoken word that brings something into a form, into a start of a creation, a pattern of creation. Then you can, as a healer, put yourself in a place that I call the central fire. It's or the void. It's a place that is outside of time. So sometimes I like to see myself as, I'm not involved with time now. I'm just bringing a new pattern. I'm creating a new pattern. I don't know yet where or when it's going to go. I'm just bringing it in through the word. Then I'm sending it to the fire of the south. And what it's doing then, it becomes a real thing. It gets the content. It starts the action. And so it could be a pattern of generating a new limb, new cells. It could be a pattern of creating a new situation in your life. I like to do it, as you say, in balance, because fate is important. And I know the butterfly effect. And I feel like if you make a huge change that is more than necessary, then you might create big trouble. And so it's just the minimal of what's needed for a particular situation without creating chaos all around it, like we tend to see these days, and sending this pattern to be created and formed into your life with the fire, and then coming back into the center, and then going into the west, where is the water, where is the receiving, where is the flowing. And this pattern then is, the way I see it, is coming fully into your body, manifesting in your body, becoming real. When you're done with that pattern, because this pattern can continue to run like a waterfall from the east to the south to the west and so on, like a river to the sea. But when you're done with this pattern, I take it from the west back to the center, and then to the earth, which is the north, which is completion, which is something that is not gone, but it's not needed anymore. So it's the place where the patterns of creation that are done are going into, you can call it compost or dissolution or destruction, however you want. You're just done with it.
You touched on this a few minutes ago, and that's the 5 mystical realms. Can you say a little bit more about those, what they are, what they symbolize, and how they all work together?
For me, they are very practical. And so it might be hard for me to describe them I'll try though. So the heart realm is the place where I open the heart because something traumatized us or saddened us or caused us to stop believing in ourselves. It's the place where you discover that you are actually powerful, and therefore you are allowed to open the heart, because when the heart is closed, you can't receive. You can't receive, for example, divine grace, this frequency of love that is always available. And so that's the mission. Do whatever clearing needs to be done so that you remember what you are, who you are, and you can open the heart again to receive.
Okay.
And we go, then the shadow is not a Jungian shadow. It's more like, I just don't like, I guess, to call it dark, so I call it shadow. But it's like some sort of an underworld where there are all sorts of energetic interferences that come from past life and from all sorts of things that we cannot see, that are not us, but are interfering with us. And so this is the place of clearing. This is the place of releasing, of getting out, of burning out, of taking something out that is not ours to begin with, and somehow we allowed it in. Then the realm of magic is the realm of creating something new.
That's my favorite so far. Of the ones that you've described, the magical realm is my fave.
Yeah, and I like to go in the magical realm into a place that is, I mean, there are two great places that I love. One is the library, the inner library. Everything here is inner. So you go into the inner library to receive wisdom, and you can go into the inner landscape, which is a parallel of your body, but it's in another realm, and you see it literally as landscape, as mountains and desert and rivers. And when you tend to the landscape, you change your body. And so it's the parallel universes that affect each others that even the scientists talk about and all that. And then there is Dath, which is the bridge over the abyss, which just allows us to, I don't go deep into that yet because I'm discovering it still. But for me, what it is now is a bridge to the divine realm. That is, to cross it, you just have to sort of surrender, basically.
Right. And then what's number 5?
And number 5 is the divine realm, where you align with your divine nature so that you can let creation flow through you instead of trying hard to make something.
Beautifully said. Last question. Why do we incarnate?
We don't have to incarnate, but I believe that we incarnate because there is something in us that says, I'm not ready yet for whatever reason. Maybe I didn't take the time, or maybe I feel like I still need one more time. And so it's a school, and we agree to take that school. And every time we take it, it's a little different if we allow it. And there are some things that we take through that school and we repeat over and over because we're not ready to let it go, and that's okay. Just because we die, it's not released automatically. Something needs to be done about it, and that's the schooling of it. That's the learning. But it's a learning evolution. I don't expect that everybody immediately ascends. I know that would be really nice, but I really appreciate the learning and the change and the transformation that we get through incarnations.
You are one fascinating guy. My goodness. I love your background and how you've parlayed that into what you're doing now to help people heal. And certainly it goes without saying that it's really impressive that you've healed yourself from the MS. And congratulations on that. And my gosh, what a story you have to tell for people who are interested in working with you. It's like, well, it worked on me. So, I'm happy to see if it'll work on you too, kind of a thing.
Exactly.
How can people learn more about you and the work that you do?
My website is the easiest place to find me, and it is www.alchemical, alchemical flame, one word, alchemicalflame.com. Alchemicalflame.com. That's where you can find me, and you'll see the services and everything else that I offer there, including bi-weekly free group journeys. They're not work for you. You're just journeying with me for 30 minutes. So I invite you to join.
And you're being led on where to take them each time you do it.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
which
right.
is interesting. Okay, everybody, lots for you to ponder with this one. Lots of golden nuggets in there, and you're going to, I'm sure, be able to extract many of them. In the meantime, we're sending you love from Sweet Home, Alabama, mwah, and from California, too, where Ofer is. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends.